This program is part of the Move to Include initiative, made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Max and Helen Guernsey Charitable Foundation, in support of educational programming on statewide Iowa PBS.
Autism spectrum disorder affects how an individual processes information and interprets the world. As the prevalence of autism increases, so do efforts to understand and provide assistance to those affected by ASD. The Life Autistic series explores the successes and challenges of individuals at different life stages. My name is Tyler. Learn about my story and meet others on the spectrum, from the very young to the elderly, living the life autistic.
Sure, thank you for telling me. More bubbles!
The diagnosis of autism talks about significant impairments in communication, socialization, and this last category of these restricted, repetitive, and stereotypical patterns of behaviors.
Autism isn't developmentally delayed. Autism is a different operating system. Think of it in terms of it not being right or wrong, but just a different way that people take in information and how they organize that information and then how they share that information with other people. And these are all things that are impacted by autism.
So I think early intervention is one of the most important things that we can direct families toward or identify for families when they get started. Kids grow and they start with foundational types of goals and needs, and really those grow on each other. So I think the earlier you can intervene, the better it is to build those foundations and those blocks that they need to succeed as they grow.
I tell him good night every night, and he says, night night, I love you. That's, something I did not know I'd ever hear. So that's been huge. He's always making just strides forward and forward.
Uh-oh, I didn't hear you say go. Ready? Set? Go!
He's always been very, very happy, but there was a lot of moments of anxiety and stress and things that we are seeing a lot less of. And I think that's because he's just kind of figuring out how to interact with the world better.
Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. So itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again.
I can't imagine my life, our lives, how it was a year ago, just because it's so different. And we still have a lot of work to do, but he's just marching along, making huge, huge strides. So my son, Finn, he is 4 years old. He has autism. He is very, very inquisitive, very curious about the world, mostly items, objects, not necessarily people so much. It's so overwhelming in that first beginning stages because it's a life you never really could have even planned, or you don't even think about what a person with a child with autism does to help them. You just, you don't think about that. He was a very easy, happy baby, nothing alarming. As we started to kind of introduce solid foods, he had a really big aversion to it, kind of gagging. And the biggest, kind of red flag was there was no talking at all. He just, didn't have a lot of even really babbling.
Mama.
We didn't think like autism because he did always give eye contact,
Mama.
Gave kisses, and was affectionate. I think it's probably his 18-month appointment. His doctor suggested a developmental doctor, and by that point, things were kind of popping up a little more. He's flapping his hands and spinning around in circles and things like that.
Hi!
Finn is a hard worker. He's going to try really, really hard to do what you ask of him.
What do you say to Mom? Mom.
And this environment is all new to him at the Children's Autism Project. So to come in and engage with all kinds of new toys and new people and new kids really does tell you a little bit about him as a person.
It's empty. That's a light.
We go 5 days a week here from 9 to 11:30, and then he goes over to Child Serve. And they have an autism day health program. So during that time, he's there for 5 hours.
You're copying them.
The research on early intervention in autism is profound. The earlier a child is diagnosed and intervention can begin, the more likelihood that you'll have the most desirable outcomes. And the most desirable outcomes is to be as independent as possible.
Pipe cleaner. Pipe cleaner. Good, trying.
So in this case with Finn, one of the most significant barriers for him is that he doesn't have a concept of safety. It has been one of our major focus, is to teach him to stay with us without holding on to our hand, without running into other rooms.
Stay with me to the lion room. That's being safe. There we go. That's staying together.
His other area of big need is his communication skills. He has recently learned to make some level of vocal language to get his needs and wants met. However, he's not always understandable.
Say clean. Cleaner. Type cleaner.
Being understood is so important because it also is what establishes trust. And he comes here and he needs to trust that when he says something, his words have power, so that later in life, when he's older, when he really needs to tell someone that something's wrong or he needs help with something, that he has that built-in relationship of communication. In addition to that, behaviorally, there's some challenges. He engages in some stereotypy, and you might have seen that with the pipe cleaner where he kind of flips them around in front of his eyes. And when he does those types of things, he disengages from the people around him.
Realistically, you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind, you know, his future. You have to plan for, you know, will he need assistance far into his adult life? You know, we don't know that, because that's kind of a looming thing that you don't want to think about as far as, you know, when I'm gone, you know, what will happen with him? Will he be safe? Will he be loved? Will he be taken care of? Or will he be able to do that himself?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
He'll be 6 in June. He is actually going to start kindergarten this fall. It's like you almost can't imagine how things were just 12 months ago. It's crazy. He's always steadily made progress, but the amount of progress that he has made is what is just so remarkable. It's really, really important too to be in that intensive therapy world, because that's how you see progress. Everybody has to be on the same page, working really, really hard to get him to a point where he is able to be the best he can be.
And yellow star, you got them all. High five. Good job. So Finn not only receives speech therapy here twice a week, he is also receiving occupational therapy, and he is also receiving feeding therapy. He is getting a lot of interaction with our therapists and his teachers. Today he asked for assistance multiple times from me, and he requested for different objects or activities he wanted to play with. So I would say in the last year and a half, he's hit this explosion where he's just started to speak more and use his voice to change the environment around him. It's been really cool to watch.
1, 2, 3, jump!
One of his behaviors that we really dealt with was screaming, you know, a lot, covering his ears and screaming. And as he has made huge progress in communication especially,
Oh, it's all gone.
that has gone way down. So his distress level, I would say, and his anxiety level, that's all going down. Finn works so incredibly hard. Every little milestone that we meet with him, or every goal that we meet, is so huge. You know, you can't help but feel like so proud and happy and excited. And there are things that in a typical household wouldn't be that big of a deal, but to us they're such huge victories.
So there are some children who appear maybe from the very beginning that something just isn't right. Then there are others who we refer to it as a regressive form of autism, who appear to be developing in almost all ways, hitting their milestones until somewhere around that second birthday. In those children, a set of skills and activities that used to be in place just stop happening. It may be gradual over time. There are children who literally were saying words and who end up nonverbal, and they lose those skills.
When the two were born, they did everything on time, crawled, walked, rolled over. Everything was pretty much almost a week apart between the two. I can't even tell you when he really went downhill. All of a sudden, it just seemed like Jack just was miserable. And that's what's hard. Your child is, developing right along, and all of a sudden they just kind of go down. On the paper.
Can you color?
Jack is 3 years old. He loves to color, which is a new thing that he's just gotten into. He's starting to clap, which he never did before, and stomp his feet once in a while. There's certain songs that he really loves.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
When Jack was little, we couldn't even get him to sit. He would just run off and be crying. He didn't want to sit and do anything, didn't play with toys appropriately. And now, if you give him a reinforcer like his shaker, he'll sit. In my immediate family is my husband, Sean, and we have a 6-year-old Max. My oldest son, Max, is on the autism spectrum as well. And then Jack has a twin sister, Josie.
All done.
No, you're not all done.
Where he's at now is he loves school. For him to take the numbers 1 through 10, and they can be mixed up and he can line them up. A year ago, I wouldn't have thought he could do that.
Good for you.
Jack is a kindergartner here at Northeast Elementary School, and he's in the general classroom, I would say about 80% of his day, and then he comes in here for a lot of intense one-on-one work with his goals right now. Jack right now is nonverbal, that's how I would classify him. He does have some words, but he's not using them to communicate so much as he's using them just to identify certain things around the room.
Pig, 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 pig.
Pig, pig. Jack's strengths right now in the classroom are his letters and numbers. He's really just fascinated by letters and numbers. It seems to be a characteristic of children with autism that they do like numbers because the order of numbers is never going to change. He is using a piece of assistive technology right now. He's had it for about 4 weeks. If you want a drink, tell me drink.
Drink, please, and thank you.
Good job, Jack. One of the biggest things that I would like to see for Jack is for him to have a way to communicate. Right now, he's not able to let us know, I'm hurt, or I'm sick, or I'm hungry, or I'm grumpy right now, just leave me alone. He doesn't have a way to say those things.
Jack has a one-on-one associate, which he needs because of the fact that he could run off at any point if somebody wasn't watching him. And still, he's not completely potty trained, so he needs help with that. Potty training is like my next goal that I would love to have done.
That's you!
Keep working on the speech. I've heard him say words. He said words at school, so I know he can speak. It's just getting it out of him. He's just a happier child, and the earlier you can start doing intervention, the better. That's been huge for Jack. When we started, I thought, oh, his goal was to get him to sit for 10 minutes without crying or running off. And then today you see him and he'll sit and do work. Safety is the biggest thing, especially for a child like Jack. And that's why we do swimming lessons, because we want to make sure that he's able, if he gets in a pool or gets into a pond or something, that he can get up and get back to the side, like if he fell off a dock or something, because that was my biggest fear.
I have had Jack on my roster for the last year and a half. When I first got him as an 8th grader, he was displaying some more negative behaviors, whereas he was maybe having some self-injurious behaviors. If he got upset, he would maybe hit his head a little bit. He had, we called them vocal aggressions.
You're okay. Hey.
Sometimes he would leave the area where he was supposed to be because something else was bothering him, or he wanted to just get out of work.
Jack, over here. Get your tray. It's okay. Get your tray. What animal? Yeah.
Pig.
You say it.
Pig.
Pig.
We're working on him communicating more, so rather than the behaviors being the form of communication, we're having him use his augmentative alternative communication device to say what might be bothering him or ask for a break. I would describe him as low verbal. So he has the ability to speak, and we hear that often in little snippets or short little phrases or one-word answers.
Rabbit.
Pig.
Rabbit. Good trying, Jack.
But when it comes to having a conversation, that's something at this point in time, he still has a little bit of a wall in front of him that we need to help him jump over.
Hands down. Nice hands.
One of the things that Jack does communicatively is he reverses his sounds, or he'll put an initial sound at the end of a word. So saying fish is very hard for Jack. It sounds like shish, because he's not sure about exactly where to have proper mouth placement.
Fish.
Yes, there it was. You got your sounds. Good job, Jack.
Help.
Ooh, you forgot a word.
I would say Jack's area of strength is doing work tasks that are very repetitive, that have a clear answer.
1, 4.
14. High five. Good job. 63. High five. Good job.
He needs to know, here's how I start it, here's exactly how I do it, and here's how I end it. You do see that no matter what abilities or disabilities the students have, they are teenagers, so they're going to have the same feelings that a neurotypical student might have. Jack also sometimes struggles with understanding social cues from other people. One of the biggest challenges is he has feelings that he doesn't know how to appropriately display and communicate with us. So we're trying to help him navigate, when you're frustrated, this is what you could do. We also really hit up the living component, where we're working on hygiene or living skills. And one of the big living skills for Jack is making his lunch. So we're trying to help him understand it's your lunch. You need to be the one that makes it. Because as an adult, if he's hungry, I want him someday to be able to go to the kitchen and do it on his own. It's scary at times to think about that, but it's a skill that he needed to have last year. Where was this child as a 3-year-old, as a 7-year-old, as an 8th grader?
That going 8.
Everything that we do and all of the goals from here on out are very much aligned to what does Jack hope for himself in the future, what do parents hope for him in the future, and how can we meld those into applicable goals that will make a difference for him for the rest of his life.
Probably down the road when he's 18, 19, 20, if he's still, where he needs full-time care, what do you do? Is there places that he can live, that he can have help, where he can go out and get a job and come back and live somewhat independently? That's probably the biggest goal and the biggest fear.
I definitely think he knows he's different, but understanding what role autism plays in that is going to be a difficult conversation.
I don't think he necessarily feels bad about it or feels sorry for himself. Generally, he's a pretty happy-go-lucky kid.
kids, even before a year, start to babble, and Brandon didn't even babble. He was just silent unless he cried. As he progressed, we still had no speech, and that was really kind of a huge red flag for us, was that he wasn't saying anything. No words, no sounds, nothing. In the meantime, we were having some more tantrums and really difficult behavior. He was difficult to take out in public. We kept adding therapies, and so we started with speech, and then we added OT, occupational therapy, and then we added feeding therapy, yes, and then we added the Children's Autism Project here. So for a time, he was essentially doing 4 different therapies. But there comes a time where we can't do it all anymore, and we have 2 other kids who are now in activities. Carter plays basketball, Jana does dance, and there's a lot of guilt where, am I doing enough? And trying to balance all 3 of them at the same time. Brandon is obsessed with Mario. Mario Brothers, Super Mario. He loves every Mario game, and that's been an interest of his for a really long time. And if we let Brandon, he would play video games all day, every day. And so we work on rotating different activities throughout our day so that he gets some time with the electronics, but then also has time to go outside or read or cut paper or some of the other things that he likes to do. Let's do some scooter. Does that sound like a plan? Yeah?
I can't take it anymore.
Oh, really? Is that rough?
Yes.
Yes. How about, tell you what, we do a little bit of chalk and you can sit and also see Super Mario. You want to do it on the driveway? There's no sun, so you don't have to worry about getting sweaty. Okay, what do you think? You want to go find some chalk?
Green scene.
Oh, green scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's green scene?
It's kind of like a mix, right, with green and yellow? Yeah. Yeah?
Do we go back in yet?
Not yet. You're doing a good job.
I need a timer now. Okay?
No timer yet. What do you think?
After this chalk?
Maybe after the chalk. We'll see. Middle school and high school are tough socially for anybody, and for him, the gap will get wider as kids start to be interested in movies and music and things like that, and interested in boys and girls, and he's not going to have those interests. He's still going to be playing Mario probably, and so friendship is really hard, and that's a concern I have for when he's an adult too.
Being the parent of a special needs child is a huge stress on day-to-day living.
Right.
Huge stress on relationships with ourselves, each other, with friends outside of our family, which makes us a very tight and close-knit family.
It does.
And there's a lot of love between the 5 of us, but it doesn't come without its challenges.
Yeah. Go hands. Oh.
Green.
What color?
Green.
Green? I don't have any green. The Children's Autism Project here really, though, has changed our lives. I don't know where Brandon would be if we have not spent the past 5.5 years here.
Business acts. We'll ask for a break if someone is out.
Perfect. An area that Brandon really struggles with is understanding why people engage in social behavior, and especially why they engage in behavior that he doesn't like. So when Brandon hears a baby screaming in a public location, he will get frustrated and attempt to yell at the baby and tell it to stop crying. He doesn't understand that they're not out to get him. And so we do a lot of perspective taking on, why is this person upset? How is your behavior impacting them?
My name is Brandon. I like to play the Wii.
Brandon's pretty famous right now for saying it's no big deal whenever something happens, and that's something that we taught him to cope with those challenges. Every year I think we push Brandon on some phobia and some fear, and he always comes out on top.
You're going to lose.
Do you think you can do that with decimals? Let's go ahead and do this problem today, please. How do we say that first number? 32 and 1/10 times
8
tenths. Good job. All right. I am Brandon's general education teacher. He's in my classroom 80% of the time. 20% of the time he's in special education. He really loves math, anything on the computer. I could see him just continuing his love for computers and just being a whiz on the computer. He's a very good speller. He's a very good reader. It's the comprehension side of reading that is a little more difficult, especially as books are getting more challenging and there's a lot more inferring. But my expectations for him in the classroom are just like everyone else's, and he really rises to the challenge.
Go ahead. Show us where your next room is.
Childers? Yeah. Show them the way.
Yeah.
This way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Over there. And right here.
Okay.
Brandon is only in the special education classroom for 30 minutes of reading instruction and 30 minutes of social skills instruction, so to work on that social emotional behavior piece. He now is working on, over the last year, having a conversation and being able to start a conversation with his peers and to carry on the conversation, how to appropriately end it and not just get up and walk away or say, I'm done.
How do you write?
We're gonna highlight. You got it. Okay. Brandon's the only student I've ever had in 22 years to start from kindergarten through 5th grade. He's grown a lot from this little kiddo that didn't talk a whole lot, just trying to get him to work and stuff, and then to this guy who now he talks and he'll have a conversation with you and he'll ask you questions, greets you every morning. It'll be amazing to watch him over the next 7 years to see what he does for 6th through 12th grade.
Maybe 3, depending on the weather.
We know he's going to have limitations. We just don't know, obviously, what all those will be. And long term, what happens when we're gone? What will he do once we're not around anymore?
That also makes me emotional. That's what keeps me up at night, is what happens when we're gone. He has 2 amazing siblings, but that's a lot of pressure to put on a sibling too. So we want Brandon to be as independent as possible. Brandon has changed our lives, and he's had a huge impact on us, and I think we've both found a strength that we didn't know that we had. We just hope that by raising awareness and telling our story that people will just be a little more kind, that they will be a little bit more understanding for those who are different from them. And even though Brandon struggles with speech and he struggles with social skills, he wants the same things that we do. Sometimes it is really, really hard, but sometimes it's also just amazing, because I feel like we really have an idea of what's really important in life. And sometimes it's not all that superficial stuff. And if people could understand that, then I guess we've done our job.
Is it done?
Siblings of children with autism play a really important role for their brothers or sisters. They often are models for developmental skills that their sibling might be lacking, and because of that, they often are the catalyst for their sibling with autism developing communication skills or social or play skills. They also are often their sibling with autism's first friend, or maybe even their best friend, and quite often their greatest defender.
Working with adolescents is particularly challenging, only because there's an end to the financial support. when they graduate,
Yes or no?
at the end of their 21st year or on their 21st birthday, the world changes.
Nice job.
It just gets overwhelming when we sit down and try and think about what we have to do in that very short amount of time. But we have to get better at it. We have to get better at this whole thing, because when I look at adults and we have this growing number of individuals, you know, that leading edge of the epidemic of autism diagnoses, when all of a sudden everybody was like, oh my God, there's so many kids with autism being diagnosed. And like, they're all becoming adults now.
I've also been here long enough to know some children that have started when they were in preschool and now are transitioned into high school and doing so well, and even going to college or other dreams that maybe they had for their child.
We are working on some job skill related things. Anything hands-on with Matthew is great. He is on more of a functional learning program now, so we can start kind of looking past high school, what are things going to look like. Matthew is a 9th grader right now. I've had him since he's been a 6th grader. He comes to us from Corning, a different school district. Matthew is a lot of fun. He's got a very bubbly personality. I know that when he first came to us, Mom was worried because that wasn't always the case. However, I think we've kind of gotten his learning style pegged a little bit, and we try to capitalize on that. And he's one of those kids that really does like school. I mean, he comes here, you'll see when he walks in the door, he'll have a smile on his face.
Do you guys like learning?
Yeah.
Matthew, do you like learning? Could just take your smile.
Yes.
Yeah, you do, don't you? Very good.
He's somebody who can be distracted very easily. We are working on communications, and in the past, if we've ever seen any kind of adverse behaviors or anything like that, it's never been in a mean way. Honestly, it's just him trying to communicate. And so for the last several years, we've just seen a steady increase in his abilities.
Matthew, can you put the pennies in the penny bag?
Good morning, Matthew.
Because communication is a deficit, he has his communication device. His is more of a physical nonverbal. I think if he had the ability to make his vocal cords work in the way he wanted to, he would. Because you'll see him, he will try to say words.
Good to see you.
He very much understands how to use his communication device to communicate with others, which is really cool. You know, he uses it at school, he uses it at home, he uses it when we go to our community outings or community experiences. We do run into situations, though, where we're just really not sure what he wants.
Then what do we do after Pop Shop? Yes, very good.
They're both tight. I'm not sure what he's wanting.
I think it's straight. Which one?
Which one?
Perfect examples here of me not knowing what exactly he wants.
They have so much going on with their sensory systems, you know, the lighting, even just like I'm sitting here looking at you, they're taking in all of that, and then all of a sudden they literally could not hear you.
It's like a monkey, okay?
Matthew kind of had been like that in the past. You could tell he was taking in all of his surroundings and his environment, but now he's got that focus down to where he can actually really dive into what the person is saying and go beyond those scripted messages that we work on, kind of coping with those sensory systems.
Fix. Yes. Yes, very good.
As an adolescent, Matthew goes through all of those changes every other teenage boy would go through. You know, we're starting to see him go through some hormone and, you know, puberty changes. He's gonna eventually here need to learn how to shave. There's different hygiene things that we're gonna need to start learning, or he's gonna need to start learning. So we'll work on that at school, you know, alongside mom and dad at home. But hormones and puberty is the biggest thing, because that in itself causes more attention issues. It causes, my body feels funny, I don't know how to deal with that. You know, all of these things are going, so it's more sensory challenges on top of what's already there.
Brush teeth.
You'll see I also work on a lot of sequencing things. So if you think about jobs that we do every day, usually they have an order to them. So just anything that we can do to help Matthew understand that there's an order and a purpose to everything that we do. Group work, which is a huge thing that we've been able to accomplish this year, and his attention has greatly increased. We work on the social aspect of it, so it's not just the content of what I might be reading or teaching. It's more of the body awareness, the social skills. If somebody else is talking, whether it be a peer or an adult, can I turn and actively listen in hopes that they'll keep capitalizing on those skills and then be able to use that outside of our room. It doesn't do me any good if they can do it here, but they can't do it, in the hallways at school or when we do our community experiences.
Okay, we're going to push the button. There we go. Making French vanilla cappuccino.
Our school and our level 3 program does have a coffee shop that we run. We always make our coffee shop baked goods. Like today it's muffins and we have breakfast enchiladas. We do deliveries between our high school, our elementary, and our courthouse downtown. That's a great way to work on the social and the communication goals that we've been working on here to transfer them out. It also works on money skills. I always like it when I get other teachers that'll stop me in the hallway or staff that'll email me, or even like we go to the courthouse. Small enough town, everybody knows you. They'll say, we can really see the progress your kids are making, which is really cool.
So that's the number. Now we're going to go for the day. So I need you to look first. Can you find the same? What is today? Wednesday. Awesome. Today is Wednesday. Do we agree with Matthew?
In the morning, we do coffee shop, and then it goes to calendar, and we have a little bit of a calendar daily news time. And then I always have a morning walk. It just was something that kids started asking for. Just getting out of this setting helps them to be able to come back and focus. So instead of doing like 10 or 15 minutes of group work, this year we've been able to get upwards of 45 minutes at a time. So this morning walk has kind of provided an extended learning ability for my students. Matthew is my first student I've had who's going to be able to go to Camp Sunnyside. He does well in new settings for the most part, and he loves to be outside. He's a kid that'll go, play with the bugs on the sidewalk, and he's kind of all boy. So I'm really excited that he gets to go.
I think Easter Seals Camp Sunnyside really supports individuals who haven't had an opportunity to be away from home by giving them a safe environment. For some campers, they come and it is their first time away from home, and they are very apprehensive and they don't know what they want to experience or do. And perhaps there's someone who needs that one-to-one support to be successful in the camp environment. What we want to do for every single person is give them an opportunity to do something they haven't done before, because when you do something for the first time and you're successful, it builds confidence. And what we know is the confidence that they experience here at Camp Sunnyside goes back with them in their communities, in their schools, and their work. And they not only have more confidence to try new things, but they also experience more success. And that's what camp is all about, is creating that environment where you are successful.
Matthew's getting older, now we're looking at more specific job skills, specific activities that he might need to know how to do to be successful. And in Matthew's case, it is living, learning, working that we're focusing on more now, so we can help him be successful beyond high school. So building those skills that he could potentially need in the workforce. We don't have it really specific right now, because as he continues to grow and show us things that he likes and doesn't like, there is no doubt in my mind that he will be successful in the workforce.
I think that when you are relating to someone who doesn't have speech or is very limited in their verbalizations, it's difficult. You don't get that reciprocal, back and forth, easy conversation. I think that people need to remember they are listening, they are hearing you, they are feeling it, and they need to have a voice.
I like that. Yeah, you do like blocks. You pick them a lot. Very good.
Each of us has a communication difficulty of some kind, whether we're verbal or nonverbal. And one of the most frustrating things that we experience as humans is the inability to express ourselves the way that we need to. Sometimes we nail it, and sometimes we miss it. So be patient and seek to understand what the person is communicating.
One of the things people talk about with autism is theory of mind. Theory of mind is the ability to look at the world from someone else's perspective than your own and realize that they are perceiving things differently.
Sugar.
Yeah.
We've got to stop looking at the world from our own perspective and saying that's what's right or wrong, and recognize the greatness of saying somebody looks at something different, processes information different. There's value to them being a part of us.
Goodbye. Good baby.
Good job, Courtney.
People will always ask you, even now as Courtney is 29, people will say, oh, and what does she do or where does she work? And so we still, are explaining that she lives in a group home in our neighborhood and goes to a day program, and about her diagnosis. From where we started to where we are now, it's huge for her to be able to have those services and to have that full life and live independently in a group home. And for us, we're still kind of proud to be able to say that. Courtney had different traits of autism right from day one. And she was our firstborn, so we kept thinking, oh, maybe she'll get through this or things will be a little bit different. She did not sleep. She never played appropriately with toys. When Courtney was 2, we realized she had taught herself to read, and she could read and spell everything. She could not communicate, could say a few words. She would list what things were. When Courtney was 20 months old, our second child was born, and slept through the night, liked to be held. Things were very different. And so at that point, we knew something was off with Courtney. And then when she was 3, she was formally diagnosed at the University of Iowa Child Psych at the Autism Clinic. After you receive the diagnosis, there's a time where you're going to go through some grieving, and that's because maybe the future that you had planned for the child is going to be a little bit different. And so you just have to remember that you aren't in this alone, but that you're really important, and so is your child. When Courtney was young, she was very active. When she turned 14 and started having seizures, she also received an additional diagnosis of epilepsy. She did slow down. It wasn't really even a progression. It was just pretty quickly when seizures started and those medications. She is much more careful, much more slow.
Wait.
Oh, there you go.
She still gets excited and can be a little excitable, but it's pretty short-lived.
See it?
Wait.
Away. You ready? Here's the ball. Oh.
Courtney is the oldest of 3 in our family. She adores her siblings and they adore her as well. In high school, our son wrote an essay about how Courtney was his hero because she could face life, always being positive with everything that she dealt with.
All right. So, storybook. What's it say?
Tell the truth.
Good girl.
When we started to think about possibly having Courtney moving out of our home, she was 23, and it was just a huge decision. It took about 2 years before we found a house where we could have a group home and felt that we could turn over the care to the staff of Christian Opportunity Center. She made the transition much easier than my husband and I. We still have her come home on weekends.
A carrot.
Carrot.
2.
They're just regular homes in neighborhoods. So to support these individuals, we wrap 24/7, 365-day-a-year care. I think Courtney has made gains. Yes, she has support and different things, but we all have support in our lives. Hers is just that maybe a little bit more care.
All right, let me help. Good job, Courtney.
It's a blue diamond.
It's a blue diamond. You think so? Okay.
We can't understand really what she wants all the time, and she has to kind of like think it through. Like if we'll say, what do you want, and she knows what she wants, but she's trying to process as to how to say it or how to show it. So I think sometimes that is a big challenge for her.
All right. Do you want carrots, cauliflower, or broccoli?
Broccoli.
Broccoli? All right, show me what you want. Broccoli? All righty. That is broccoli we are going to have.
I think she enjoys riding the van because, she'll say music, so we listen to music in there, and she may giggle and laugh and smile and hear her talking.
Courtney, A, B, C, D, E, F, C, H.
So she goes to Easter Seals program Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. COC transports her from her home to that program.
So the official definition is a Life Club is a day program for adults with special needs. Courtney wears a helmet for her safety. Courtney is, she's contagious. When she's, saying kind of random phrases or she just smiles spontaneously, that is so contagious. Of course I love you. Sometimes where she's really active, some other times where she prefers to be a little bit more quiet. Courtney does have peers, friends that she interacts with every day. It typically is those peers and those friends approaching Courtney.
There. Good job, Courtney.
Just the understanding and kindness that they share with one another is always very inspiring to me. I think so many of our clients, they've had a lot of barriers in their life, things that they could have used as an excuse, but they're always working to improve their life. They're always working to do better.
We go on outings every day of the week into the community. Courtney does seem to enjoy going on outings, and I think it's important for her to have the experiences that she wants to have.
You hello. Yeah, it'll fit. Hello.
Hello.
You gonna bow? No. You gonna bow?
One thing that we know about disabilities is that people have the same wants, desires, and goals that people who don't have disabilities have, but they're often isolated from the community which they live in. And so we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to develop those social skills that allow them to better fit with the community that they're living with.
When Courtney was 6, I joined the Autism Society of Iowa. We have really started to move from autism awareness to autism acceptance, to accepting the employee with autism and giving them a chance at work, and the classmate, and the house in your neighborhood that is a group home that is full of adults with autism who also live their lives, and then also always embracing the family who's raising a child with autism.
It's very hard for people with autism to get jobs that use their skills. In the first place, it's very hard to even apply for a job, because if you go online and you have autism, it's probably very difficult to fill out an online job application. And so right from the get-go, you're at a disadvantage.
We know when people have the opportunity to work, they have a healthier life in general because they're living with purpose. And I think employers want to work and want to bring individuals with disabilities into their workforce, but sometimes they're not sure how to do it.
I think just for businesses to have a better understanding that in order to employ people with disabilities, not just autism, but other disabilities, they need to do recruitment. How do we assess them? How do we interview them? How do we get them in the door in the first place?
I was in my 40s and I was single. I basically wanted to find somebody before I died, I didn't want to die lonely, so I ran across this person named Margot Mouse, and we started emailing back and forth, and about 10 years ago this weekend, we had our first date, and I knew my life would be changed forever. My name is Mike Durdorf, and I am 54 years old, and I live in Grundy Center with my wife, Margot. She's an occupational therapist at Grundy County Memorial Hospital, and I have 2 stepsons on the autism spectrum. One is 21, and the other one will be 19 in July, and I'm autistic. I was diagnosed at the age of 4, and I couldn't go to school until I had to learn to talk. This was back in 1969 when the ratio was 1 in 10,000. Hardly anybody knew what autism was, but I was one of those 10,000. Thankfully, I was able to start talking, and then I was able to go to kindergarten, and I was just integrated, and I graduated on time, and here I am today. I did speech therapy at the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics. So naturally, that's Hawkeye country out there. First down. I always have been a fan, and I always will be. Yes! Hawkeye football is probably my favorite. I can't go to football games or that because it's just too overwhelming for me. So just various situations, or if everybody's talking at one time, that kind of gets a little challenging too, and I may not react appropriately. I'm kind of a homebody in that regard. Another thing too is sudden change. That's something I'm not real comfortable with. I'm getting better at handling it, but it's still something I'm not real comfortable with. Getting married was obviously a big achievement. I'm very proud to be married and love my wife a ton.
Something I think that helps in our relationship is that inherently I also know what's going to stress him out. He likes the routines, and actually it's kind of a calming force in our household because I'm much more spontaneous. He's very steady in his demeanor, and so that really works well with the boys because they know that they can depend upon him. They both know that he would go to the ends of the earth for them.
I would say the successes I've had as a parent is I know what they're going through. Yeah, there's a couple steps here, so be careful. Both boy or young men now are on the spectrum. Got it working?
Yep, it ran about 10 minutes ago, so it should run again.
Okay. It can be a challenge, but it's also very rewarding to see not only our relationship grow, but watching Alex and Drew grow more and more, not only physically, but socially and psychologically in that. It's just amazing to watch them grow up. I've been with Drew over half his life now. I didn't think we would be really that tight when we first started, but boy, we're pretty tight. It's time for the alphabet show, Boosie.
The reason why we can't do this interview actually in our home is because if we were trying to do this at home, it would be intermingled with Drew saying, shh, no talk, no talk, no talk is over. It's done, it's closed. You gonna draw it on your board?
This program.
That's one of your favorite things to draw. Oh, nice. So with Drew, a lot of things get to be closed if they're not what he wants. What about Cookie Monster singing? He will have tantrums, meltdowns, those types of things. That's not to say that there aren't wonderful celebrations of the things that he can do. Oh, that's a good job singing. But I want to make sure that people understand that his world is markedly different from anybody else's. And my world, and thus Mike's, Alex's, and Grandma's, is totally different than anybody else's. You know, autism isn't just a diagnosis. It's not just this problem. It's not that problem. It really is, it totally overtakes your world. In some ways good, in some ways bad. Alex, who's now 21, he's a little bit higher functioning. So Alex sees this work ethic with Mike. I have a job, I go every day, this is what we do, you know, and it's worked out really well because he's been a really great role model.
I commute to Cedar Falls every day. I work at a place called Talk to Me Technologies, and it's about a 30-mile commute, about 35, 40 minutes to get from home to work.
Talk to Me Technologies is a mid-sized company. What we do is provide speech devices for people with complex communication needs. Mike has been here about 1.5 years now. Mike's position is manufacturing associate. His main key job responsibility is to disinfect the devices that we manufacture.
I usually go through maybe between 10 and 15 a day, depending on our workload. I usually have enough work to do all day.
if they come in for a repair or if they come back from a trial or a loan before they can go to the next person. He manufactures different components for our devices and then also general office duties as well. Mike is incredibly detail-oriented. He has a drive to do the best that he can and really helps us serve as many clients as we can just by being so meticulous in what he does. Really, the only accommodation that we have for him is he does have a door on his work area where he spends most of his time because sometimes the environment does get a little loud. So he can choose day to day or hour to hour if he needs to shut that door and have a little more quiet. Mike came to the company with goals set out, trying to help other people with the same diagnosis that he has in the autism community.
Makes me feel really good when I go home at night saying, hey, I helped another person gain their communication, and it makes me feel proud to be here. I am an autism advocate here in the state of Iowa, and I've been doing this since 2013. And my main goal right now is to talk to law enforcement people and safety people.
If you hear a child say, child with autism missing, I would check the water every single time.
And for businesses, because hiring autistic people, I feel, is a good idea, and not enough autistic people are employed. And there's a lot of talent in our community that hasn't been tapped into. And what I do is I talk to businesses about why hiring a person on the spectrum would be a good fit for their company. I think a common misnomer that people think about autism is they're not very smart, and that is not true. People get that idea because of the way we do things, but we're not worse or better, we just think differently.
Autism is Mike, a great dad, working, has a great job, goes to work every single day. Autism is my brother, who is beyond brilliant. However, with Drew, it's grieving the fact that he couldn't get his driver's license, that he's not going to get married, that he's not going to have kids. That is autism. Autism is anywhere in between. So it really is a spectrum.
If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Because it's such a varying spectrum. And I kind of compare autism to snowflakes. No two people are exactly alike.
Gary does recognize that he has autism, and he says it makes him think differently. And we've talked about how that's not a bad thing, and thinking differently can be seen as a good thing. Gary doesn't want to be seen as autism. He wants to be seen as Gary.
Pepper's up here. I'll show you.
Gary is 35 years old. He is a very hard worker himself. He is incredibly kind, a people person. He always wants to help. Gary does have family. His family are natural supports to him. A lady named Katie, who is his guardian. So not, blood family, but she definitely is family to Gary.
I got family now. I got Katie as a family. I got all of it. And I get to be Uncle Gary.
To who?
To Katie's baby.
Katie's baby. How old is Katie's baby?
He's about 2 months.
2 months old. You hold him?
Yeah.
Yeah? Have you fed him yet?
No.
You changed a dirty diaper?
Nope.
No?
Well, the baby adores me, so. And then I got pets, too.
Oh, Katie has dogs?
Yep. I have 3 dogs.
Wow.
And you know what Cola likes it, what I do?
What?
She lays down on her side and lets me rub her belly.
Gary recently moved into a brand new, beautiful home. He lives with 3 other roommates.
What is your favorite part about your new home?
Fishing.
Fishing? Because you have a pond in your backyard, right?
Yeah.
What kind of fish do you like catching?
Bluegill and crappie and bass. Catfish.
Okay, cool.
Almost.
What else do you like to do?
I like to cook. My favorite thing every year is to go to is the Iowa game.
Who's your favorite team?
The Hawkeyes. They've been winning. 8, 9.
Gary is a very curious learner. He is huge into people and loves making friends and having those relationships.
Thank you, Tom.
We're gonna have a cookout this weekend at your house.
Yep.
Right? Who's coming? You having friends come over?
Yeah, I told James I would ask you today if he could come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And so we're gonna grill out, right? What else are we gonna do?
Maybe fish.
Maybe do some fishing. Maybe play some games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice shot. I'm gonna lose on TV, Gary.
Gary is interested in dating. We've recently talked about that, and he brings up girls and everything. He's interested in it, but he just, not right now, which is completely fine.
Gary, what are some ways that you are more independent?
Doing my own laundry.
Okay. What else?
Doing dishes.
Yep. How are some ways that you've grown as a person?
No bad behaviors.
No bad behaviors. What does that mean to you?
No aggression.
So you've worked on being angry.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a pretty happy person now, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, he always had overnight staff. Now he uses an overnight monitoring system, so he doesn't require an overnight staff. If he wants to stay home alone, he can do that, which seems small, but for Gary, that's huge.
This is done.
And now to be even able to go out into the community by himself is massive.
I got a good deal on a riding lawnmower.
Gary started working on the farm in October of 2017. Gary works 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, what?
I don't know. Chicken butt.
Gary works Carrot Balance Autism as a farmhand all year round. So there's a lot of variety of things that he does. He will seed. Anything that goes into our field is hand seeded by individuals with autism.
I like this better. I like this better in the summer than winter.
Gary came to us just needing a little fine tuning on his skills. He needed to follow directions, take feedback, and he's really progressed in that really well.
Okay, that way it doesn't get tangled on my fingers. You want to try it? Thumb. There you go. See? When you get discouraged, just take a deep breath. Good job using your coping skills, Gary. I'm very proud of you. That was awesome.
So you made a black and gold Hawkeye flower basket.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
I bought that one.
Yep.
I bought that one that you made, and I didn't know you made it.
Oh.
That's really cool. So when you walk by the tractor, what are you doing?
Making sure the holes are big enough to plant the plants in.
Okay. Okay. So like in the summertime?
We plant.
You plant. What kind of plants?
Strawberries, tomatoes, a whole bunch of stuff.
Do you eat any of the plants that you grow? Yeah? What kinds?
Eggplant, sweet potatoes, and stuff like that.
What's your favorite vegetable?
Eggplant, because you can fry it in flour and bread it.
So Gary helps harvest all of the produce. Each piece of produce is hand cleaned, hand packaged, and then we deliver it to our community supported agriculture members. At the end of the season, we tear apart the fields and we started on our fall and winter projects.
Didn't see that one.
I was hiding right in
What have you been doing at work?
Pulling plastic.
Pulling plastic. What does the plastic do?
Helps the plants grow.
Helps the plants grow?
And keep the weeds out.
Well, Gary, eventually we want him to work in the community. We're not sure exactly what that job would be. Like right now, he likes cleaning, so he could get a job in the community cleaning someday.
He wants to be out there and he wants to be independent. He wants to do a good job. When he first came here, he was very unsure of himself, very argumentative, and extremely attention-seeking. You know, now I can pretty much say, hey, Gary, go work on this for me, and he'll head that direction. But before it was, I can't, it doesn't work. And so instead of saying I can't, he will flat out be like, I'm going to succeed at this. I think now he stands a little taller.
All right.
Think they'll be okay back there?
Yep.
I think that it's important that as individuals, we just relate to each other as you and I would, or anyone, as a friend, as a colleague, a coworker. That's very important for these individuals, that they are treated with that respect and dignity of any adult.
The biggest challenge I think that is facing adults with autism right now are the same challenges that you and I face, right? It's becoming involved or of our communities. And then I would also say relationship skills, teaching them how to have good friendships as well as intimate relationships.
I think that working with people with autism has really helped me to see the potential that there can be for any person. Everybody can make progress. Everybody can move into greater independence, more socialization. It might be in a different way, but every single individual does have a potential for growth.
When I walk barefoot, I take in the sensations of the earth, like the grass, rocks, and dirt, because when you walk barefoot, you actually receive positive energy from the ground, and it helps calm you down, and it relieves stress of day-to-day life. My name's Tyler Leech. I'm 26 years old, and what I want people to know about me is that even though I have autism, I enjoy being around people and making new friends. My autism is high functioning, and while there are some times where some things might be a little difficult, I think it makes me who I am.
Tyler was diagnosed when he was 22 months old, and he was developing normally with his milestones, and all of a sudden I noticed that he wasn't talking anymore, wasn't even saying mama. I was devastated. He had occupational therapy, he had speech therapy. I just took advantage of what was out there and did a lot of networking, a lot of research, a lot of reading.
Some of the challenges that I have faced were difficulty being in areas with loud noise and a bit of anxiety. It took some resources, a lot of patience, and a lot of love, because back then I was very impatient with a lot of things, and I think there were some times where my family wasn't patient with the way my autism was either. So I think that by having the time to focus on what I needed and to learn from each other, I think it helped out a lot. I went to college at Des Moines Area Community College, or DMAC. I had a few doubts when some of my classes proved to be a little difficult, but I just put the time and effort into the studies and gave myself some pep talks so I can show myself that I can do it. I work at Wells Fargo in Des Moines as an operations processor. So I look at merchant applications, enter their data into our computer system.
Tyler's a great asset to us because the work can be repetitive, and that's what he really likes. So we'll be able to give him more volume of work to do just because we know that he'll be able to get the work done on time and accurately as well.
The Diverse Abilities Team Member Network is one that supports our team members with disabilities. Tyler engages in our team member network as a member. And so we'll have him invited into colleges or into other speaking environments, and he might be scared to death to do it, and he always says yes to the opportunity to be able to learn and grow.
I'd say I'm pretty independent. I cook meals and I do some cleaning on a regular basis. I am able to handle the laundry pretty well. I manage my budget. 7.
17.
27 for 3. My grandfather and I, we've played cribbage for a long time. In fact, it was cribbage playing with him that I learned how to count. Got a run of 4. So these are the ribbons and medals that I've won through Special Olympics. Special Olympics really means a lot to me because I get to meet new friends through the program and also get active. I also drive to and from places every day, and I never thought I was going to get my driver's license, let alone a permit. But I took the time and dedication into doing the driver's ed class, and it got me to where I am now. I'm a pretty social person. I enjoy going to church. I attend autism walks and events. I sometimes go to different sporting events on occasion. I hope to get my own place eventually, and I also want to try to get into the dating world, though it is a little nerve-wracking.
There is a fine line about a parent possibly having their own fear and holding their child back. I think everybody's different. I just knew that my son was going to have a life, and the best life he could have, and do as much as he could. And he is so passionate about being a role model and making a difference for other people with special needs. So I am very, very proud, and he's found his purpose. And it's just a beautiful thing. He looks at his autism as a gift, and I guess so do I, but I didn't always look at it that way.
My advice to people who have a loved one with autism is to check out the resources that are available to you, because they do help in the same way that they've helped me. And just take the time to learn about your loved one and be patient with them, because it's a big learning process. And when you take the time to learn about them, you might even learn something about yourself.
Then leave a little space and put a capital P. For him, because of the autism, there are just certain things in his life that kind of get in his way. There you go. But he's figured out ways to make it work. And he's not going to be able to tell you that because he's nonverbal. I think one of the things that we have done as his parents is to help him to understand that he's got to also help himself. So our son, JP, is 38. Here's a young man who exudes love for others, and people do really, in turn, share that with him.
Were there 4 last time we came? I don't know.
JP was born in April, so had him going to child care at about 5 months, and that's when we began to have the medical issues. Chronic upper respiratory infections, chronic ear infections. But even before then, one of the things that we noted was he wasn't lifting his head on his own, and he wasn't trying to roll over. Now he's a year old and he's not walking, and he wasn't developing speech. The doctor referred to it as apraxia, totally new term for us, because the muscles were not developing as they should, which would allow him to be able to form words. The other thing also was our pediatrician had us working with a child psychiatrist because he wanted to be able to get a full picture of what was going on with JP. Now, mind you, he's 2 years old at this point. He's having the issues with digestion, and he's not forming words, he's not walking, he can't hear. He was finally healthy enough at about age 2.5. He was now making sounds, trying to express himself. Still using sign language, but we still don't know that he's autistic. But that developmental delay is still there. The other thing was he began to walk now. Pull himself up, crawl, pull himself up, walk. Wow, at 2.5, he's now walking. That was a major step in his life, and for us, the beginning of relief. And so we finally get a diagnosis. He's 4.5, and we're saying, wow, now we know what it is. We all learned sign language because he had no language, but he picked up that sign language just like that. He's now able to communicate with us. One of the things that I learned at a very early stage with JP was we couldn't just focus all of our lives and our attention on just JP, because we also had another son who had interests, who wanted to be out in the world doing things. And then, of course, we had our own interests. We're a cycling family. JP has refused to ride any of the many bicycles that we've ever had. However, whenever we as a family take off just to ride bikes, he's always been with us. In 1988, I began racing BMX bikes. And so I never stopped racing bikes just because of JP's autism. And I think that's probably one of the healthiest things that I could do, because I'm still going to be the mom of an autistic son. But I have that other side, that side that says, you name it, you can get out there and continue to do it. Loving this sport. So, yeah. Love me some BMX, y'all. So, JP, what did you wind up doing today?
Leaves.
Okay, you wound up raking up the leaves. And what do you like about the seasons?
The fall.
The fall. Why do you like the fall? Well, what do you get to do? Your Halloween. And what did we put up for you?
Dragon.
Your dragon. And what did you put on the windows?
Lights.
You put the lights. What will we put up next after Halloween?
Turkey.
Turkey. And what season will turkey be? The blow-up turkey. So we'll put up the blow-up turkey.
Way too early.
It's way too early now. Yeah, I know that. He loves going to the theater. He and I go to Civic Center performances. Let's see. Here we are. We have, that one's on your feet. I remember that one. That was a funny one. That was another, yeah. And you remember Waitress? Yeah. Yeah, that one's over with. He loves looking at the newspaper every morning. Yeah, I know he's got to be reading, but he also looks for symbols and pictures. That's why He looks at the weather because you have the symbols for the weather. He enjoys going around and being with other people, and that's not an issue for him anymore. This afternoon, where are you going to be going? To the zoo. All right. And you're going to be going with your SCL worker, Carly.
Are you ready to go to the zoo? Yeah. Look at the All right.
Easter Seal's hourly SCL program is supported community living. So kind of our goal is to get our clients who have disabilities out into the community to work on goals that they have set. So that could be working on their social skills, that could be money management, things like that. Look at the flamingos. How do they stand on one leg? Those birds. Those are the kind of birds I'm scared of. They're too big. Yeah, those monkeys are so cute. Have you been here when they've been swinging? Usually they swing from the top. JP, are you having fun at the zoo?
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing we've seen so far?
Giraffe.
The giraffes. Would you like to have a giraffe as a pet?
No.
No? What are we on the way to go see?
Lions.
The lions? There's one. There's another one. Where are the other two? Usually they're always sleeping.
One of the concerns we have always had is what would life be like for JP beyond us? What we have to be able to do in our own mind is to hope that we can put together a living situation that will enable him to continue to live the kind of lifestyle that he's grown accustomed to. That's a tough one. And so one of the things we're looking at is how do we make this home his forever home? What is it that we need to do to assure that that would happen, where he could have some services that would come in for him? We want JP to know that life will continue for him beyond us, because that is what will probably happen. And so for him to know, I will still be able to continue to do the things I have been doing for the last 38 years. Why do you like to keep going to this? Do you enjoy these? Yeah.
For those who are using their behavior as their communication, what you may see is an increase in problematic behavior. That means that they're disruptive. Their behavior may be such that the family really can't go to eat in public restaurants or attend church services. That this is the point where families are frequently saying, my child's never been invited to a birthday party. Doesn't seem to have an actual friend that they've chosen to be their friend.
It's very common also with people with autism to have a set rote conversation that they like to go back to.
Em mẹ sắp bậc mình bậc anh bậc anh bậc.
They might ask you repetitive questions, ask you that same thing day in, day out. And I've thought about that a lot. And I think if my social skills are awkward and it's difficult for me, I'm probably going to go back to those safe conversations, those safe topics over and over, because I can now have a connection and have a reciprocal conversation with you that feels good and feels safe for me.
I think that people with autism often are looking at the world just a little bit differently than you and I. And so sometimes just to try to put yourself in their place and see what it is that
they find so interesting, how they attempt a task that's different than the way you and I might do it. So I think just sort of seeing the world through their eyes is a good way to learn from them. What my husband says is that our son taught him patience.
When I think about Lynn and where he came from in his lifetime, autism really didn't hit the maps before 1990 a whole lot. You didn't even hear about it. You hear that early intervention is so important. I wonder how much Lynn had that opportunity for those early interventions in rural Iowa clear back in the 40s and 50s. I think that's really important to think about, and how he has progressed in his life and the challenges that he has gone through, going many, many years without even being known that what his diagnosis was.
You want to put your light on? Okay. Good, yeah. Yeah.
Lynn is 72 years old. He's very, very sweet, laid back, and easygoing. He's very affectionate. Lynn loves everything farming, from beans to combines to John Deere green. He loves it all.
Cow.
Yeah, very good, very good.
He also loves his morning coffee and his afternoon coffee.
How are you?
Lynn communicates verbally. Typically, he will communicate using 1 to 2 word phrases, and it is very scripted, so it's things that he's heard in his past or things of interest to him.
What about this guy?
Cow.
That's a cow, yeah. And what about this guy?
Hold on, look here. What's this?
What's
oink,
this?
oink, every day.
Oink, oink.
What's that?
What is it? It's a pig. Good job.
He can make requests for things that he wants or needs verbally, but typically staff just kind of know what he wants and can help him out. Sometimes he'll point, sometimes he'll lead staff to what he wants.
Good job.
Lynn grew up around farms with his family. His father unfortunately had passed away when he was young, and his mother was no longer able to care for him because his aggression was too significant. At that time, she had moved him into a facility in Story County, where he continued to display some aggressive behaviors that were very challenging, and the facility was not able to care for him the way that he needed.
Right there.
When Lynn came to us in 1995, and up until last year, he was able to be part of our vocational program on our farm. He really enjoyed that farm work, being that he grew up in a farm background. Last year, he was working when he would like to, or when he chose to work. Then he retired. I don't think he fully understands the concept of retirement, but it is pretty exciting to think about someone with autism starting from having a lot of aggression and not being very successful in a vocational setting to being independent and be able to retire as a neurotypical person would. Balance Autism provides a lot of different living opportunities for adults with autism. Lynn transitioned from our ICF ID program, which is our campus program, more intensive care, to our home and community-based services, which is in the community and less restrictive for him. Lynn was able to transition into that less restrictive environment because of the skills that he gained through living in our ICF facility. He decreased his aggressions to virtually nothing, and he's really just very independent. He does need a lot of cares with hygiene tasks and mobility because of his age. But other than that, he's very laid back and easygoing, so he was able to live in an environment where he has more freedom of choice.
So tell me what you want to buy. You want to buy milk?
Gee.
You said cheese. Yeah, that's good. You want us to buy milk?
Yeah.
Lynn has staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Staff really try to involve the individuals that we serve in every decision-making process that we have and every choice that they would have. With grocery shopping, he goes whenever he really wants. Typically, staff try to assist them with going grocery shopping once a week. And then when they're at the store, they follow a grocery list based off of a menu or whatever meals Lynn wants to eat for that week.
Careful. Easy. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn, you want to say thank you?
Thank you. You guys have a good day, okay?
Guardianship is a challenge with Lynn's age and the fact that he has autism. What happens if he needs nursing home care? What nursing home is he going to go to? Who's going to provide that care for him?
Lynn is in his 70s. He has a guardian that's well in their 80s. This is not uncommon. It is so important that we have somebody set up as a successor for that guardianship. In that if something was to happen, it's not a fun conversation. Nobody wants to have these. If something was to happen to your guardian, you have to have somebody lined up, ready to go to support your loved one.
When you have someone with autism, you typically think, we're going to work on these intensive maybe behavioral strategies to shape their behavior or change their behavior. And then also focusing on those communication skills and the social skills. A lot of people forget that there is actually a life being lived also. So that's really important to us that he is able to do those things. I think Lynn is an inspiration for anybody. At 72 years old, he's still very humble and laid back, and he's grown so much with decreasing his aggression to nothing. My advice for family and friends who have a loved one with autism would be to help get that intervention that they need, help them grow their social skills, find a communication system that works for them and they're able to communicate their wants and needs, and also just most importantly is help them live a fulfilling life.
Oh, Bob, I know.
I'm staying overnight.
Where?
The alternate is the direction is on the way around.
Hold can you put on your jacket?
Lainey can certainly become frustrated when she's not able to do something or if something doesn't go her way. And she has never been a person who strikes out at others. She doesn't become aggressive toward other people, but she will turn that aggression on herself.
She's my person in the alternative.
Lainey will develop a strong relationship. Usually it's reciprocal because of Lainey. Lainey is very likable.
And you have a birthday coming up.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a party.
How old are you gonna be?
I'm gonna be 47. I'm gonna be 47.
Lainey had kind of a rough start to life. When she was 5 hours old, she had her first seizure. And I could hear the nurses or people running in the halls, and I didn't know what was going on, but I just had a sense that something was wrong with my baby. And then in the morning, they came in and said that they didn't think she would live. We were told she would probably never walk, never talk, maybe never roll over. And she did still have seizures. But then they stopped. And she did crawl, and she did stand up, and she did walk at the normal time. But cognitively, we could see there was a delay. When she was 5, and using the term transitioning from preschool to a grade school, is when she was diagnosed with autism. When Lainey's sister went to college, my husband and I decided this might be the time to help Lainey transition into a different setting. People would tell us, when your son or daughter is in public school, you don't have a clue as to how good you've got it. Because once you transition into adulthood, and all of a sudden the services either are different, have fallen away, it's a shock. When we decided that it would be in our and Lainey's best interest to find a residential place for her to live, which sure as heck wasn't her idea. It was challenging. You know, you can't play trial and error because you're playing with her life.
She lives on campus and she has 3 roommates. She
gets along with them. She knows all their names, knows most of their parents' names. On campus, we'll typically have 2 a.m. staff, 2 p.m. staff, and an overnight staff. So she's constantly getting that round-the-clock care.
Jordan is my niece.
I've worked with Lenny now for 8 years, and I've come to understand Lenny. And I don't see her as a person with disability. I treat her like any other person. For Lenny, transitioning from one place to another, it may take her some time before it sinks in for her to transition, but once she gets to that point, she will go. You don't want to force her.
We can't go because I already called. I picked the phone down at Nancy here to me in it.
We are just going to do some quick.
Well, we can't work. I can't work because my mom, she wanted me to ask Angie a question.
When Lenny goes to work, most of the time she vacuums in the main office here at Balance Autism, and she also wipes down the windows.
I feel like sometimes she maybe doesn't get enough credit, like she's really smart and she knows what's going on around her. At the end of the day, she's a person too. I feel like that gets lost sometimes. Like she has autism, but she has this personality, this very big personality.
Sure we can do that together. We could cooperate together. That sounds like a wonderful idea.
That's so wonderful.
Lainey is very social. Once she gets to know you and trust you and has made a connection with you, she's very affectionate. She gives the best hugs in the world. I would say Lainey has excellent social skills overall. She's lived in the same home for 24 years with 3 other women. Those ladies are very involved in going to the movies, out to eat. They have been volunteering at Blank Park Zoo and have enjoyed that.
Angie said she loved me.
Family is super important to Lainey. She's constantly talking about them.
She loves her sister Angie so much. Angie is married and has 2 children, and Lainey loves her niece and her nephew and her brother-in-law.
Angie and Chris can't come.
How does it make you feel?
It makes me exciting to her. It makes me exciting to her.
Lainey's dad died more than 11 years ago. So that was very difficult for her not to have her dad in her life anymore. When she comes here and spends the day or even overnight, or when it's time to return to her home, in the over 25 years that she has no longer lived with me.
Oh my goodness.
It's never easy.
She got me another CD and it's another CD.
Is that CD in your bag?
Yeah, but can you tell her the one you found it? It's the other one.
The Simon and Garfunkel? The transition from my car into where she lives is extremely difficult. I know that once she's back in the routine, she's okay. She likes where she is. It used to be something I totally dreaded, was having to take her back and see her almost despair at leaving me.
How you doing?
Well, I have to go visit Edith. She probably, and I don't like it here.
Lady had
But my birthday.
You tell him.
Today is my birthday.
What? It is.
I am not going to be here on this holiday. Angie is having. I have to have a picture with Angie.
When I took my cell phone to record Lainey going to the dentist, she really didn't pay any attention to me at all. You know, she was so focused on not opening her mouth. She didn't care what I was doing.
Can we see your teeth?
Real quick.
We can't see them when your lips are closed.
Having a healthcare professional touch her make her do things that she doesn't want to do probably will continue to be a struggle.
Mother, you better the word help, and that's where Olivia she needs to be. Well, she has to say help.
But because we see Dr. Jacobson, who has the patience and genuine respect for Lainey and Lainey's inability to behave like any other patient, it makes that trip so much easier.
How about one more look here?
In her mid-40s, another thing that I think about as a young woman is going through menopause.
I brought this.
Hot flashes, will that be an issue for Lainey as she goes on into her 50s? You know, her hair is graying.
You're doing a great job.
And Angie and I used to joke and say, Lainey is never going to be gray. What comes in the 60s? What comes when I'm not here? Which is certainly something that I think,
Put it in your basket.
you know, we all think about.
Yeah. There. It's in the basket.
Yeah. And I started saying something to Lainey about death. How will she incorporate that into her life when my red car that she still calls a Jeep, which it is not, doesn't come up the driveway anymore? You know, how will she figure that out? And I'm not going to be there to help. With that.
You want to show us what's inside your purse?
Well, sure I could do that.
I think it's important to help others feel comfortable talking with your child with a disability. The acceptance is something that is so important to all of us.
Neurodiversity is the way of saying, how do I bring somebody that thinks about the world differently, that has a different operating system, that processes information differently into their circle, so that as they have opportunities to learn and grow as a group, they have the benefit of having these folks with different perspectives.
You know, 1990, we had the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we've gotten so good at understanding what accommodations are for people with physical challenges. We have curb cuts and handicapped parking spaces and ramps and hotel rooms with lights for the fire alarm for people who are deaf. But now what are accommodations for someone with a neurological challenge? What would an accommodation be for someone with an autism spectrum disorder? As opposed to saying that they have to learn to act differently. Which we wouldn't say if you had a physical disability, because we can see that. So I think that a lot of the education, the public education, needs to focus on how do we learn to accommodate people better so that they can achieve their higher goals, as opposed to constantly focus on them having to change their behavior.
For me, I get asked, what's my identity? Being a college professor, working in the cattle industry, designing equipment, autism is an important part of who I am. I wouldn't want to change it because I don't like the illogical way that most people think. But it's not my primary identity. I looked really terrible when I was 2 years old. Kids can look really bad. Then as you work with them, some kind of pull out of it, others don't. But you don't know until you start to work with them. And that's why early intervention is so important. And what I'm seeing as I travel around the country is we're doing a better job on the early intervention. But where we're really falling down is with the older kids, teaching job skills, driving. That's going to take longer because of the multitasking issue. I did 200 miles on dirt roads at my aunt's ranch, picking up the mail every day, which was 3 miles away, before I did traffic. A lot more practice in really safe places. When I was 4 years old, I was nonverbal, had all the symptoms of severe autism. I was fortunate to get into a really good early intervention program. Lots of turn-taking games, teaching me language, teaching table manners. That was done in a much more structured way back in the 50s. that I want to demonstrate is how you walk back by them to get them to come up in the chute. If you've got 3-year-olds that are not talking, the worst thing you can do is just to wait. You got to start working with that kid now. I've seen too many situations where the diagnosis is holding fully verbal kids back because there's a tendency to baby them and they're not learning how to drive, they're not learning working skills. And very often today, I have grandparents come up to me and they discover they're on the autism spectrum when the kids get diagnosed. But those grandparents had decent jobs because they had paper routes at age 11, learned how to work. Social skills in my generation were taught in a much more structured way. In the 50s, we had sit-down meals. You were taught how to take turns in conversation. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the older generation had jobs and kept their jobs. You see, a brain can be more thinking, or a brain can be more social emotional. And a certain amount of this is just normal variation. And years ago, I said, who do you think made the first stone spear back in the caveman days? It wasn't the yakety yaks around the campfire. It would have been somebody probably on the autism spectrum in the back of the cave trying to chip that rock and tie it to a stick. What you got to do with kids on the spectrum is stretch them. Stretch them just outside the comfort zone, but give them choices. Now, the way I got into the cattle industry is I was exposed to it when I was a teenager. I came from a non-ag background, and when the opportunity came up to visit my aunt's ranch, Mother gave me a choice. I could go for a week and come home if I hated it, or stay all summer. Not going wasn't one of the choices, but giving some choices of stretching activities. The other thing we cannot let these kids do is become recluses in their room. They get so anxious, they just don't want to come out of their room. Exercise will help on that. I do 100 sit-ups every night. But you've got to get them out doing things. And I've had parents say, oh, he got a job at a store and he's just blossoming. You see, a person on the spectrum has lots of memory. So let's compare to computer systems. So you got the cloud computing memory back here. Tons and tons of memory, but a really small chip. Working memory is a problem. And so anything that requires remembering a sequence of steps, like maybe doing the ice cream machine at McDonald's, pilot's checklist. And when I worked in a dairy when I was a graduate student, they had a checklist on the wall on how to set up the dairy equipment, the milking machine equipment, and I would have been in a lot of trouble without that checklist. That's a real easy thing to do. Let's look at situations in the environment that can cause problems with people with autism, and that's lighting. Certain kinds of lighting flickers. I was just in a hotel room the other day that was completely horrible. It had chevron black and white stripes on the floor and compact fluorescent lights. And I could see the pattern on the floor going like this. Now, I tolerated it okay, but there are certain people where this would be completely awful. I have some sound sensitivity problems. One of the ways to help get over sound sensitivity is let the kid control it. All right, let's say he's afraid of the vacuum cleaner. Then let the kid turn it on and off. Let the kid control that vacuum cleaner, where they are controlling that sound. And then they can sometimes learn to tolerate it if they control it. I get asked all the time, should I tell the kid they have autism? He's having a great time, I wouldn't bother telling them. And I'm seeing too many kids where their whole identity is autism. And they say, oh, I want to be an autism activist. And I explain to them, you will be a better activist if you can go out and excel in a job, maybe an engineering job, an art job, writing job, or something like that. And then you do the activist stuff. I always emphasize all the things I've done at work. And what I learned is I learned to sell my work. People thought I was weird. But when I showed them my drawings and my pictures, they looked at that and go, oh, you designed that? People on the spectrum usually are good at one thing, bad at something else. We need to be putting a lot more emphasis on building up the area of strength. Talking to the FFA and the 4-H students today just about some basic things about animal behavior. And one of the things I learned from animals was learning how to work. I was not a good student in high school, but I learned how to work in my school's horse barn. Big problem I'm seeing today is not learning work skills, because I'm afraid that some of those kids today are just ending up getting addicted to video games, and they're not going anywhere. They're not becoming video game designers. If they were becoming great video game designers, I wouldn't be criticizing it. but that's not where they're going. And I'm seeing a really big problem on not learning working skills. How about walking dogs? How about church volunteer jobs? Find things in the neighborhood that the kid can do that's on a schedule outside the family. I was bullied in high school. I got bullied in school. It was awful. Fortunately, I was not bullied in elementary school, because Mrs. Deech, the third grade teacher, explained that I had a disability, but it wasn't a disability you could see, like having a wheelchair or crutches, and the other kids ought to be helping me. So high school was a disaster, complete disaster of bullying. In elementary school, other kids like to do craft projects. So I had friends who shared interests. It's a really important thing, friends who shared interest. Then when I was in high school and I was still getting bullied, the only places I was not bullied was horseback riding, model rockets, and electronics. Again, that is shared interests. Really important to get kids maybe involved in band, the school play. It could be lots of different things. Being a woman in the feed yard industry was much harder than being autistic, way harder. Well, I don't do the bar scene. That's too socially complicated for me. Also, I can't hear. I've got some auditory processing problems, and with background noise, I can't hear. You know, I think what makes my life interesting and worthwhile is work. Also, if you quickly walk back by them like that, they'll go forward. I was very happy to have a lady come up to me in the airport last night and tell me that she'd read my books and looked at some of my videos and that it really helped her daughter. That's something that gives meaning to life.
One of the things that we're excited about is how has the world changed in viewing autism, right? 25 years ago, we were talking about awareness. What is autism? We've moved from awareness to acceptance, that person in the grocery store is different than me, and I can accept that. I can accept that he handles information differently than I do. I can accept that he communicates differently than I do. Maybe that next door neighbor has autism, and I can accept him in my world. The question now is, are we getting to appreciation? Can we move from awareness to acceptance to appreciation? What does this person with autism have that my life benefits from? And there are things that they bring to the table. They have a unique perspective. They have an ability to do certain things that I can't do, right? So how do we tap into those strengths? And that's one of the fun things to think about with our communities today. We don't want to just be in your community. We want, as a person with autism, to be a part of your community, meaning we're not just visiting. We are your neighbors. We are your coworkers. We're your fellow churchgoers. We enjoy the same hobbies and interests, right? So how do we make opportunities for people to be fully accepted and appreciated?
See you later.
See you later.
This program is part of the Move to Include initiative, made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
the Max and Helen Guernsey Charitable Foundation, in support of educational programming on statewide Iowa PBS.